welcome to the WOD Pod. Join me as I sit down with CrossFitters, fitness experts, top coaches, professional athletes, and other well-known gym goers to listen to their journey through fitness. This episode was a long time coming. For those that don't know, Rich is the owner of various CrossFit competitions: Arnold Fitness Games, Battle for Middle Ground, Rep It Out, Castle Games, to name a few. As well as that, he owns Graft gym in Halifax, West Yorkshire. In December last year, Rich captained a team of 4 who took on the world's toughest row, which was 3,000 miles across the Atlantic Ocean from Gomera to Antigua. This podcast episode reveals everything that happened during the row, including some key motivators and real emotional moments. Enjoy this one. Right, Series 3, Episode 7, with Richard Hornsey, aka Rick, Rich, Ricardo, Ricky H. What do people call you? Because I think I call you Rick and Rich.
I think the people that know me, probably on a personal level, it's Rick. But most people, like at events and stuff, just call me Hornsey because that's my Instagram handle. So it's the same old, innit? Everyone just sort of learns it off that. Yeah,
this one's been a long time coming. I think we spoke about doing a podcast a while ago, and then it got delayed, pushed back, and then in between, in that time frame, you've casually rode the Atlantic. So it's kind of worked out all right.
Yeah, it was like an all-inclusive, nice holiday.
Going to come on to that in a bit. Big up the facts. Yeah, so my girlfriend's parents are from Halifax. Okay. So I think I legally have to say that it's one of the most beautiful places I've ever seen on earth.
Massive liar. Massive liar. That's a red flag for your girlfriend.
Yeah, probably, innit?
He lied too easy.
Have you always lived in Halifax? Selby Bridge?
Yeah, apart from obviously my time in the military. Lived away for 10 years doing that, but rest of the time, born and bred.
So prior to CrossFit and the gym and your events company, military for 10 years.
Yeah.
From my observations of you at comps and just speaking to you, I get the impression you've got very good mental resilience.
Stubbornness, bit of arseholeness.
Yeah. What would you say are the key factors in your life that have given you that?
So I'm a big believer in everything kind of comes back to your childhood. It teaches you a lot of stuff there. Like I had a really good childhood, to be fair. But it was, outside, playing all the time, old school childhood, learning to fix bikes, falling off, like hurting yourself every week. Even playing rugby, you were constantly like hurt and stuff. And it just kind of teaches you that, I don't know, that's part of life. Yep. Do you know what I mean? And I think a lot of people, it's not just saying people are soft these days, but I don't think people are exposed to like the toughness of life. As kids growing up, I don't see it as much anymore. Everything's very protective bubble, even down to the fact that, you can't come last at a sports day because it'll affect them down the line. It's like, come on, you came last, Timmy. Sort your life out.
Sort your shit out, yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I think that right from there, so kind of growing up, again, doing martial arts and things like that, and then military background, you go in and again, that's just, I wouldn't say, it teaches you a little bit, but it just reinforces it more and more.
So I understand you did Afghan.
Yeah.
I will never experience Afghan or that level of, experience in the army. Can you try and describe something that will give me an insight into what it was like? Or like the reality of it?
I don't know. It just changes you. It changes you. And I think this is a big part of things like PTSD and the unseen suffering when people do come back. You go to an environment where you have to be a different person to the person you are back in the UK, in the Western society. You have to be harsh into stuff. You see horrific, disgusting things. You have to make horrible decisions. You've been trained for it, don't get me wrong, but you have to like change who you are as a person to be able to do that stuff and be okay with it. And then when you come back, it is genuinely like really, really tough. I think probably for 6 months, I think I'd say that I drank like a bottle of whiskey every night to go to sleep for about 6 months. And that was my coping strategy at the time, to be able to actually sleep and to be able to do that.
So is that just vivid memories of being in Afghan or in the military?
There's bits of it that are like memories and things like that, but there's a lot of it where I found that I almost resented people for the fact that they just took everything that they had for granted. You know, like showers, cars, comfort, all these things, and people would take it for granted and wreck them and act like arseholes. And it's a massive hypocrite saying this, because you were in exactly the same position when I was like, you know, before the military and the teens and stuff. But yeah, it's coming back. And I mean, I can remember like walling mates up and things like that when I got back. And it's literally for no reason. But it was winding up like on the next level. And there was nothing you could really do to cope with it. And the military's kind of coping system for this. And I get everything comes down to how much budget you can put behind stuff. But you came back from Afghan and you stopped for about 2 days in Cyprus, got some padre chatting to you about the stuff that you've seen and done and blah, blah, blah. And then you get a load of crates thrown into the theatre room. Next day you have a day down the beach and then you're back in the UK, and that's supposed to have sorted you out from all this.
3 days.
Yeah. Do you know what I mean? And then that's them ticking a box. But also it comes down to budget and things like that. But yeah, that's it. And then you're back. And
do you still think about your military days now? Do you ever have memories come back, or are you trying to kind of erase that?
I think you do to a certain extent, but it's less and less, and you've learned to cope with it by now. So you do, but
because you did body recovery and diving.
Yeah.
I can't imagine that.
Um,
What support do you get after doing those dives or seeing the things you see? Is there any support, or is it just get on with it?
Yeah, just get on with it. Like the military doesn't really work like that. It's just they're taken for granted that you sort of see this stuff. I think that's why, you know, for instance, like with any of the services, military, police, fire, ambulance, we all seem to have a dark sense of humour, because you have to
have thick skin.
Yeah, but you have to almost be like lighthearted about the things that you see and do. Like paramedics I know quite a few, and it's the same stuff. Like you have to joke about this stuff, because everyone should be able to have a joke and have a laugh at work. But when your work is horrific, like seeing horrific stuff or having to deal with massive heartbreak, you know, in a house and stuff like that, you have to act appropriately while you're there. But you also have to be able to have some sort of rapport and humour with your team and, you know, with that. Otherwise, I think you just end up completely just depressed. And
it's almost kind of normalising it a bit, because it's not normal to see those things, but that's your job. So then by having a laugh and joke around it, it's, I don't know, maybe making it feel a bit more normal.
I think it is, but I kind of disagree to a certain extent with what you're saying, because it's just not normal nowadays. Like as animals, we're okay with dealing with this stuff. Like, let's be honest, we've only been sort of living in nice houses and stuff for a very short amount of time that we've been on the planet. Like we're used to people in our families dying. We're used to seeing this sort of stuff. But when society tells you that it should affect you in this way and that way, then it does, because that's what, you know, you're
programmed to,
exactly. It's your learned behavior. And that's kind of what I'm saying with like Afghan. It's like people don't put themselves on as high a pedestal as they do in Western society. Life's cheaper. And it sounds bad saying it that way. I just don't know another way to articulate it. But, you know, like kids were beaten. So one of the big things that like stuck out with me was I was working with Special Forces at the time in the hospital, and we were like going in and doing surgery and stuff. So I've actually done surgery as well. It's pretty cool. Yeah. But we went in on one of the cases that had come in. It was a 9-year-old boy. Like, this sticks with me, and it probably will until I die. But there was a 9-year-old boy came in, and he had stood on a mine, like an old Russian mine, just playing in kind of like his backyard. And that kind of hits home. Like, can you imagine the press release on that if that happened in the UK? This is like, it just happens there. He'd lost both his legs. He had shrapnel. When people hear of shrapnel as well, they just think bits of metal. Like, he had bits of his legs in his body. He had everything that had blown up below him had been pushed into his organs and up. So it was like part of his shin was actually like shrapnel in his body. And the hospital in Afghan is actually, well, this is what they said, is the best facility in the world, because every nation that's there has put a lot of money into there, and there's a lot of politics behind it as well. Like, all of a sudden we're in Afghan and the death rate goes down a shit ton. Doesn't mean people stopped getting hit, IEDs and things like that. It's just that the people on the ground got absolutely roasted, wearing Kevlar, undies, Kevlar this, Kevlar that. Like, you could barely move, but yet you were meant to be patrolling for like 9 hours that day with all your ammo, all your electronic countermeasures and everything. It's like, we suffered, so the statistics weren't bad. And then if you did get hit, you went there and you weren't going to die. So you were never going to be a death thing. But the amount of people that went home as like a double, triple, or even quadruple amputee was ridiculous. Wow. But it's not a death figure. So it's like, cool, because that looks good in politics. Never mind the poor sod that's fucking lost both his legs and arms, or hers, and is now like, what quality of life? Yeah, but for politicians, you're not a death toll, so that's cool.
It's a win, yeah.
Yeah. So that's the state of the art that this facility was, and that's probably the reasoning behind it. But they said openly, like, he can survive this. However, his family will let him die when he goes home, because he cannot do anything to support the family. He's just a burden to the family. So they let him like die on the table there, instead of letting him survive, go through all the process of making him survive, to understand that he would not survive when he goes back home. Because life's harder.
Yeah.
And whether we like it or not, like that you know, and when you go to a country and you see people that have that understanding of it, where it's not life is cheaper, but life's harder and death is more reoccurring, they're hardened to it and they're used to it. And that's when you come home and you see how luxury everyone has it, and all the safety, everything, and all this, that, and the other, and nothing's really going to happen. And when something does happen, it's like, whoa.
Yeah.
It's like,
it's so pathetic, isn't it?
Yeah.
In comparison.
And that's what I was resenting so much. There was like, you'd seen this child like step on a mine from a nation that's not even there, from an old Russian mine that's not even there anymore, that left it years ago, completely innocently playing. And you see the harshness of actually, like, I get it now. I get, like, humanity isn't really what you're used to. You've grown up in the UK and you're used to a certain level of what you think humanity is, and it's just not.
It's like everyone's wrapped in cotton wool and protected and in this bubble.
Yeah.
And yeah, until you've seen it, you probably don't understand that.
Yeah, yeah.
And I probably don't either. So
it's crazy. It blew my mind.
You worked on the doors after military?
No, that was before.
Before.
Yeah, yeah.
You learnt to kickbox. Was there kickboxing before working on the doors, or afterwards?
Before, yeah.
Okay, so you must have some good stories about knocking someone out.
No, not really. I mean,
never knocked someone out on a night.
Yeah, I have, but I've not. That wasn't
there must
working.
Be one
I wasn't working on the doors. No, I mean, I think one of my favourite like fights is for me. I did fight uptown, and I think that's why I ended up getting the stuff on the doors, and especially with kickboxing. But for me, kickboxing taught me that stuff was like pathetic, really. You know what I mean? Like, especially drunk and just having fights with whoever and stuff like that. And stepping in the ring against someone, being completely sober, and then having to be punched and kicked in the face while you try and keep your calm about you, think about strategy and think about what you're doing. that I loved, and that taught me a lot.
And that's real fighting.
Yeah, exactly. That's
MMA, kickboxing, boxing. None of the professional athletes will ever fight street fight. They'll always fight in the ring in a controlled environment.
Yeah, some of them do. Some of them a little. Yeah,
I'm sure a few.
I remember Conor throwing that chair at the bus.
Well, yeah, I think Conor McGregor's a bit of an exception, isn't it? Okay, how would your current Graft employees describe you?
Have you led that on from punching someone?
Because I thought, has this crossed over into today?
Genuinely, hand on my heart, I don't know. I'd like to think that they've got a level of respect for me, and they know that I'd do anything for them. But you never know, because you've always got to, like, as the boss, you've always got to just have the understanding that they're never going to be honest with you, like completely honest. They're never going to sit you down and be like, actually, you're a bit of a turbo prick. You know, and then the tough thing is being a boss is you have to make the decisions that they're not going to want to hear. Like, everyone wants the easy life. Everyone wants it to go their way and get the pay rise when they want and this, that and the other. And as the boss, you've always got to be the bearer of, like, when it's good news, it's good. But a lot of the time it's just bad news. It's like, look,
delivering shit most days. But I feel like you would get the impression whether they disliked you or liked you. I think you can tell a lot from how people are with you. Yeah,
I think, well, we have a good like relationship. So even with the girls with the events, we have a really good laugh with them. And that, I think that relationship's definitely got better over the last couple of years. I think obviously Claire came on board kind of through COVID. We grew the business, and then we had Zach for a little while, and I really like Zach. It just didn't work out, but I do really like Zach. I always wind him up a little bit. And then obviously Sophie joined the team, and I think it was probably like micromanaging them too much for a certain period of time. But I think that was also required in the business to try and get the events to the standard that I wanted. Yeah, that I wanted, and that the brand was known for. But now they do a fantastic job, so I ease off them, and I have done for, like I say, probably the last couple of years, been easing and leaving it to them. And now it's just a laugh working there. I still have to do all the shit decisions, but it is just like a good laugh now. Yeah. Even with the lads in the gym, there's a lot of stress there because you still want the gym to work, be profitable, be growing while you're not there. That's my goal with the gyms, is to, because I've pretty much got that with the events now with the girls. So with the gyms, it's like, you know, I want to give the skill sets and bring on the team that's needed to effectively not have to work, and it still works. So,
do you find it easy to step back?
I find it easier to step back if it's working. So for instance, with the girls, I haven't had a meeting with the girls about the events other than writing programming for over 6 months now. So if that's not stepping back and leaving them to it, then I don't know what is.
And that's a good sign it's working, because if it wasn't, you'd probably be having regular meetings. So.
Exactly. And whereas with the gyms at the moment, we're not quite there. Again, it's one of the problems with CrossFit gyms is for what you're kind of offering and for the prices you feel you can charge and the wages that you need to pay and things like that. It's a really, really crap business model. There's a few gyms do it very well in the UK, but most of them have been going for quite a while. So they've, you know, and again, I'm a big believer in they've been in the industry long enough, and they've been lucky enough to get some of the unicorns. And there's only so many unicorns dotting about, which are like your members of staff. Like Claire's a unicorn.
Yeah.
She's like fantastic. She runs that side of the business for me. And I want to build that side of the business because I want to give her a full career path. I want to keep her in my business. She gets it. She's hardworking and she's pushing the business forward. Again, in the gyms, it's very hard to find these. You've usually got people that are doing stuff out of passion, especially in CrossFit. But that doesn't mean they've got skill sets to actually take it to where it needs to be for a business. So it is pretty tough finding them. And if you do, then you find that the business normally like really starts on a good trajectory and going. But then you've got the thing of how do you keep this person? Because no one wants to stay just in one job for the rest of their life. Not these days.
It's all about, your career developing and leveling up. And people want to see this annually. It's not like a 10-year goal. People want to see progression in their career, especially London careers. They're looking for pay rises, promotions on 6 months, years.
Yeah.
Which is crazy.
Well, this is it. Like most people, are, like especially in CrossFit space, start out as a coach, and then they want something. They want to become head coach, which I don't even know what the fuck that means, right? And then it's like, and then a manager, and then this, that, and the other. And it's like, right, but what skill sets do you have to be a manager? Because you were a coach and you were good at that, but then what? Like, this is a completely different.
You're now not coaching, yeah. So
yeah, this is now running a business. This is more sat at a desk running your adverts, your leads, and keeping track of everything, and also team management, making sure everyone's doing what they want to do, doing what they need to do, but keeping them happy. That's a completely different skill set to telling Debbie how to overhead squat.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So it's really tough because they want that career path, but they've limited themselves. So, and then trying to get a coach as they're coming along to be like, right, let's put you on a business development course. Let's put you on a management course. Let's do this. It's like, oh, I don't want to do that. It's like, yeah, but I want to keep you for 10 or 15 years. And I don't want you getting bored after 3 and leaving. Because the bit that a lot of people don't see with business is like the business owner or the boss's part in this. Like, it costs us a lot of money to take staff on. It takes a lot of our time up, and we invest a lot of time and effort in upskilling them, along with most of the time them thinking that we're a big piece of shit and whinging at them. And it's like, hold on, this is all at my cost. The courses that I put you on, the time that I spend out of doing my jobs, and then I'll go home and catch up with my work because I've spent the day helping you learn this. If those roles were reversed and you're helping me on a job and then going home and having to finish your job, you're going to either resent the job or you're going to ask me for more money.
Yeah,
I don't work the other way around. I'm going to do it for free. Yeah,
financial risk and the risk of putting someone through the training, the skills for them to at any point they can walk away.
Exactly. Whereas if it's the other way around, especially with me, like I employ my staff, they're not self-employed and then contract. So especially for me is, you can't just turn around to someone and be like, actually, you massively lied on your CV and your interview. You're shit at this. You're gone. If they're out of their trial phase or whatever.
Yeah, 6 months in.
Yeah, that's it. You're screwed. You're like, right, well, I now have to go through a whole disciplinary. All the time you're going to get paid, but we've got to now go through this like 1 in 1, 1 in 2, everything like that. And this is now going to cost me another $6,000, $7,000 just to be able to get someone that is useless out of my company.
Yeah.
But it's all that the boss is the bad guy. It's like, all right, yeah. Like definitely.
This podcast episode is sponsored by WOD Powders. WOD Powders have just released their protein coffee, combining grass-fed bovine collagen with True Star instant coffee, rich, smooth Colombian coffee. Head over to wodpowders.co.uk to get yours today. I want to do another podcast episode, actually, more on CrossFit and on Graft. And I'm thinking this time next year, prior to Arnold Fitness Games 2026.
Fishy. Genuinely don't know, mate. Is my God's honest. So obviously we were in talks with them last year about whether this year is happening. They've said no, but it will be back next year. From previous history with working with them, it's very painful. And I, if someone was to ask me right now to put even just like 50 quid on whether you think it's going to happen next year, I'd be like, I'd rather just not place the bet and keep the 50 quid.
Yeah.
Like, I don't necessarily put any like wedge behind what they say. So yes, they've said that. But bear in mind, like, this is the thing, like, we've got to book events up for next year. We've got to book venues and stuff like that. Claire's asked me for dates for March Mayhem, because obviously we had to move March Mayhem for this, which hit me really hard because March Mayhem's a good event. So we've brought that back this year, and then I've just had to have a discussion with Claire where she was like, do we book it in March again, or what's happening with Arnold's? And I've had to just turn around to Claire and just be like, fuck Arnold's.
Yeah, go for it. Go for March Mayhem.
We look after us, get March Mayhem booked in. If Arnold's want us, then that's a discussion we've got to have down the line. But I'm sick of holding stuff off for Arnold's. I love Arnold's. I put my heart and soul into that because that was the one that I thought I could build into like something amazing in Europe.
And it was on that path.
Yeah, but the problem is it was the most stressful thing to do working with the Arnold's teams. It was just so much hard work. Even like the last one, the stuff that people don't see because Jamie decided not to do the documentary. but like we turned up on the build for the Arnolds, and a whole load of the stuff that had been agreed and was meant to be there. So the stage, the plasma screens, even the bleacher seatings wasn't there. And this is on the Wednesday, first day of build for us, and we're just sort of like, why is it not? Why is it not here? It's meant to be here. Oh no, we haven't. Like that wasn't in the agreement. It's like
it was.
It 100% was. But I'm the one that's going to look really shit on this. So then we ended up having to like bring a company in to do that, and then he won't watch this. Luckily, we didn't pay for that yet. But that was going to be another sort of like 12 grand bill coming my way off stuff that was meant to be done, like the deal of it, because we bring X amount of, spectators and everything else is with them. And then because it's not there, you're like left last minute doing that. So but it's out of your control, which we found so like hard with the Arnolds. Whereas with our events, we're in full control. Like there's tiny little bits that, logistics could go wrong. The venues sometimes are pretty hard to work with and things like that. But on the whole, we're in control. So they run so much smoother. So yeah, I'd like to get it there and build it back, but they're a pain in the ass.
Yeah, it sounds like it's... I think, look how you run events for Graft. Why would you want to put yourself in a position where your brand reputation maybe gets tarnished because of mistakes that they're making? Yeah.
Well, it was, even them deciding last minute whether it was going to... Because obviously, the talks don't happen last minute. The talks have been going, we're still pestering them now to find out if next year's happening, things like that. So the talks are like constantly going. So like for Arnold's last year, they were letting us know again, pretty much at the last minute, whether it was going to happen or not, because they were umming and ahhing. And you're like, yeah, but we have to sell it. Like it's not on you whether it makes a profit or a loss. It's on us because this money's coming through us. But if we can't sell enough qualifiers and enough finals places, I'm going to lose money to bring people to your event and make your event look good. Why am I going to do that?
Yeah.
Like, it's crazy. Last year I did actually lose my money. So you're putting an event on for somebody else. And again, everyone thinks you're raking it in. Last year, I think lost me 11 grand to put that event on.
The last Arnold Fitness Games.
Yeah.
I mean, Hyrox is on a big trend. So this is what I'm thinking. The next Hyrox Birmingham, NEC, same venue, at the Hyrox race, Graft Fitness Games, you just team up with a Hyrox event. Bring a whole new audience.
We
same qualifiers, same prize money.
So we were actually myself and John, who used to own the events with me, we first knew about Hyrox about 7 years ago. John flew out to Germany to watch one. So again, this is one of the things that's kind of funny to me because everyone's like, Hyrox, it's this new thing, and you're like, it's fucking not new. Yeah. It's been going a while to get to the sort of momentum that it's got to now. But we sort of started looking at it then, and then coming through lockdown, we were actually in talks with Hyrox about being their UK event team. Hand on my heart, Hyrox won't do it. They ended up wanting their own team to build it in the UK and do that. I do not think that they want anything running alongside it. They want to grow their brand and their events. Right. They would take on more space to grow it bigger and things like that, but they don't want anything on the side of it, anything attached to it.
So no partnerships? And no.
I don't think so. We were in talks with a couple of other fitness festival kind of companies. So, a bit like Arnold's was, so multi-festival things. We're in talks with quite a few of them because we brought out last year. We're going to try and do a bit of a drive on it to grow it this year, but we brought out a hybrid event. The only difference with ours is it's no running. So it's all either like machines or sleds or dumbbells, things like that. So it's
the good bit of Hyrox.
Yeah, exactly. But again, for everybody, you can go and do Hyrox. Like if you're a good runner, you probably do Hyrox. Yeah. For a lot of people that aren't necessarily that good at running, you're not necessarily going to do that well at Hyrox, but you might not have the skill set for CrossFit. So it's like, cool, just come give this a go then.
Yeah.
So we are looking to like build that and take that to places. So we were already in talks with a couple of international companies that want to take that over there. So it'll be interesting to see where that goes.
Saying I wasn't going to speak much about CrossFit and focus more on the row. I'm not doing a good job here. And you're not either.
It's cool. I'll just go with it.
Yeah. So the row, I mean, I can't comprehend what it's like. So, well, let's go back to CrossFit. I did the 25.3 workout last night. Did you do it?
Yes, I did.
So I was on that rower, the first row, for just under 2 minutes. After about 40 calories, I was thinking, this is extremely boring. That's shy of 2 minutes.
Yeah.
I can't imagine rowing for more than an hour.
Yeah.
Let alone 39 days.
Yeah, it was tough.
Where do I start with this then? I suppose, yeah, we discussed it off camera, but 7,000 people climbed the summit of Everest and less than 2,000 people have rowed the Atlantic, you being one of them.
Yeah.
Cheers to that.
Cheers, mate.
The Graft row team was Dean, Nick, Matt, and yourself.
Yeah.
How was the team formed?
So Matt and Dean are both McDonald's franchisees. They were drunk, and I think this is something that has been on their bucket list. So they were like at a McDonald's function, blah, 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 got onto this thing, and they decided that they wanted to do it. Nick is Dean's like lifelong friend that he grew up with. Yep. So he has probably spoken about this for many years to Nick. So he was like, right, I'm going to do it. Are you part? And he was like, yeah. And then I think Matt asked one of the PTs that used to coach at my gym, and I got chatting to Matt about it. And there was actually another guy, Lewis. And so we had 5 to begin with. So we had like redundancy there. And Matt said to me, and I'll be honest, there was bits of it where it was like, so the original thing, and this isn't people like lying and doing the blag, it's just things move like as they go along, don't they? So like originally it was like, yeah, no, McDonald's are getting behind it, so they'll pay for loads of stuff and this, that and the other. And you're just like, I'd heard rumours of how much it costs to do this. And you're just like, well, when am I ever going to get the chance? It's not on my bucket list, never has been. But it's like, when do you get the chance to do like extraordinary things in your life? And a big bit with me is like I've not had kids yet, but I really want a family at some point, and I want to have cool stories to tell your kids to inspire them to go out and enjoy life, to go and get your max out of life. So for me, it's like, look, if it's not going to cost me the absolute, my house and everything to actually go and do this, and it's a cool challenge to like ticked off that you've done in your life.
Well, it's a huge opportunity. Like, it's not going to come off around very often.
No, exactly. So I just thought, let's just go for it, see what happens.
Okay, question about the boats, because they look expensive. Where do you get them from? And do they all have the same spec? Yeah,
so there's a couple of like different brands. I would say there's not very many though. There's, I think, 3 that I know of. Ours was Rannoch, so that's a company down in the UK, down in the south, that build the version that we had.
So do you go and view them? Pick one, like
is
it like a showroom?
Well, again, so this is the thing. So there's not really a showroom, but you can go to their factory and you can see some that they're like restoring, doing work on, new ones being built and things like that. This was as soon as this was actually happening and things like that. A lot of this was you had people that had money in the team, and that's so McDonald's kind of pulled out of backing it, because obviously McDonald's is just there as an international company. It's like, what do they actually get out of this? Plus, it could go bad, it could go good. It's risky, so they kind of pulled out of it. Yeah. Matt, one of the franchisees, just ended up buying it. So we had like the brand new state of the art, the RX-45. So this is meant to be like the Formula One of these boats at Cross. And then we got that. And there was a lot of that kind of theme where it was kind of funny, because in one regard, they'd be like, oh, well, I'm not paying £8 for some stickers. from the company to put it on. I'll find them on Amazon. But on the other regard, it was like, but I've just spent $100,000 on the boat to make sure we have it. It was like, what? This is crazy.
Yeah. Which one is it?
Yeah. You tight or you like, so like, but yeah, and then it kind of worked that we'd sold the boat, or before we even did the crossing, to a team that's doing it this year. So that's kind of how the system kind of flows. Yeah. So I think they lost about $15,000 on the boat with their crossing.
But then to have the best boat you can have, could be worth it.
Well, it could be, but again, it's like different mindsets of doing it, isn't it? So it's defining what's the purpose of going across. Are you going across to achieve going across, or are you going across to win? They're two different things. Do you need the fastest boat to go across? No, let's be honest. You could probably, just as long as it's not going to fall apart, you can get away with a 30-year-old boat. Yeah. You're still going to get from A to B, just not be the fastest. It's like if you want the best one, you're kind of edging that you want to be at the front. Do you know what I mean? Otherwise, there'd still be Formula One teams driving like 30-year-old cars around.
What did you want to do?
Mate, let's go down this little rabbit warren.
If it was down to you, if it was your choice, what would you have chosen?
So I am a very competitive person. However, being in competitive sports, being a fitness coach and doing these things and being in this sort of stuff for a lot of years, I didn't necessarily see us as a competitive team. That doesn't mean that I thought we were going to come last. And it took a while for me to get this through to them, because they all said that they wanted to break a world record and do this, that and the other. And I was like, lads, you don't get it. Like, I do a lot to do with like mindset, especially with athletes and things like that. It's like, if you set out to do a world record, but it's something that's governed by uncontrollables, it's going to be you're more than likely to have a very negative kind of outcome to it, because you can't control some of them. So like weather, this, that and the other, Marlin strike, all these things, you can't control them. So if it was just, right, I'm going to do the most press-ups in a gym, it's like, cool, that's just you against press-ups. You can control that outside of injury. Like, this isn't. There's a lot of external factors. So they really would like, no, we want to do a world record, we want to do this, that and the other. And I kind of felt as well that there was a lot of a mindset of, if we throw enough money at it, we'd win. They were buying, now this is going to sound shit, but they were buying like 250 quid lead-lined rope for the anchor because it was 10 kilos lighter than the chain. And I was like, but you're all carrying an extra fucking 40 kilos of fat. Why don't you get in the fucking gym and train instead of just spending 250 quid on a lead-lined rope, which ended up being a piece of shit as well. So it's like, it just like flicked with me with like moral stuff of like, don't just throw money at it, like put the work in, do that. And to be fair, like a lot of the lads did. Dean got in great shape. He lost so much weight.
Before the race?
Yeah, before the race. Like really ripped up, did well.
Prior to the race, did you do like days out on the boat, sleeping on the boat?
Yeah.
Practice runs?
So we did, we had it on a lake first. We did a bit there, and then we moved it up to Hartlepool, which is where our like rowing coach was based out of. So we met up when we could. And again, this was pretty hard because it's 4 people that all have their own businesses. Like Matt and Dean don't just have one McDonald's either, so they're very busy with what they're doing. So yeah, it was tough. I don't necessarily think we needed any more time up in Hartlepool going out than we did. Some of the lads probably thought we did, but I didn't think we were getting anything. We were kind of like going out. So you could only get out of Hartlepool when the weather was okay, because it's got a lock system and all this, that and the other. And obviously if the wind's blowing into like you can only go so fast on a rowing boat. It's not like a motorboat.
Yeah.
So you just wouldn't be able to get out. So we were repeating a lot of the same stuff. We'd go out in the same sort of conditions. We'd row in a straight line, turn around and row back. Or we might stay out or row overnight. And I was like, right, we've done a bit of this now. What the fuck are we going to achieve from repeating exactly the same stuff? Unless you got something that we're going to do different. It's like, I don't get why we're just repeating the same thing. It's like consistently lifting 60 kg deadlift for 6 years and then wondering why your deadlift hasn't got any stronger. Do you know what I mean?
You're going around in circles doing the same thing.
Exactly. So we did. But then in my eyes, like coming back now, if I was to coach a team or anything like that, I'd have so many things that I'd have them working on, which we just didn't know about.
What would be an example?
Things like rotating everyone through different positions in the boat, things like trying different rowing positions. I don't think you could probably get the stress and stimulus of like the pain and bits like that, of like how to manage the pain on your arse and things. But for instance, so for the whole row, Dean had to be in the back cabin because of his size. He's 6'8", so he just couldn't fit in the front cabin. So for 2 years of training all this, me and Nick were in the front cabin and Matt and Dean were in the back cabin. And again, I think some of that was probably just to do with the boys that have bought everything kind of being with all the flashy buttons and.
So is the back cabin the better cabin? No,
by far it's the shittest. It's the biggest pile of wank ever. Did I get across how much I hate that cabin? Yeah, cool. So a couple of days out when we were out in Gomera, Matt was like, I'm not staying in that back cabin. Like I refused to. And I kind of knew the reasons why, but I'd not experienced it because all through training we'd not done anything. But being the peacemaker, because they'd voted me captain as well. So I was like, look, I don't want to stand here as 4 fully grown adults having to do like rock, paper, scissors or getting some arsey argument about this. I was like, I'll just go in the back cabin. It's cool. Never experienced it before. But in my head, it was because the artillery is noisy.
Are they the same size?
No, the back cabin is bigger.
Yep.
But less storage. The front cabin probably has a bit more storage, but is smaller.
So it was you and Dean in the back cabin?
Yeah.
Okay, for the whole thing?
Yes, and this is what I'm getting at. So the front cabin, neither cabin's like good.
Right.
It's just which was worse. And I think if you ask both, like everyone's got their own opinions on it. They probably thought theirs was bad as well. But the front cabin, you got to think, majority of the crossing, and this is why you do the crossing that time of year, is the trade winds should be pushing you west. So the trade winds should always be behind you, pushing you, because I'll be honest, they're probably going to push you much faster than you can row. So the front cabin, if the cabin doors open slightly, is going to get a breeze. So it's going to be cooler. Also, you can... There's no sort of noise in there apart from there's an extra board that can go in sometimes that made a bit of a banging noise, but there's no real kind of like noise in there. And it's also dark. So if you want to get to sleep, it's actually dark.
So you've got no noise and dark and cool.
Yeah.
As opposed to
in the back cabin, yeah, no breeze in it whatsoever. So it's hotter in the cabin than it was outside. And we're talking like really hot heat anyway. Wow. So for instance, one time, Dean finished rowing and I took over from him and he went into the cabin and came out of the cabin with heat exhaustion. And we had to like mitigate that, and I did his shift and everything because he was fucked from being in the cabin. That's how hot it was. All the controls are there, so there's no darkness. The radio's going. There's a emergency system called AIS that lets you know if any vessels are kind of on track to hit you. So that's going, that wakes you up all the time. And then you've got the autotiller, and I'm gonna play this here because I recorded it because I'm that petty. But
so this is what's going off in your cabin.
Yeah.
So you're trying to sleep,
and this is in like calm conditions as well. Okay. So when it's stormy, it's a lot louder. So that's 24/7.
Oh my god!
All the time, and that's in calm conditions.
That's like Chinese torture.
Yeah,
like put you in a
in
a chamber and play some horrible noises through.
Our mattress was that thin, and you've got like basically like storage lockers underneath you. So the thing that you're lying on is a bit like that on a hard surface. So again, you're never comfortable. I don't think I got more than probably about a solid 20 minutes of sleep for 39 days.
This podcast episode is sponsored by Prep Kitchen. Prep Kitchen are a meal prep company delivering high protein, super tasty, convenient meals. My favourite at the moment, the buffalo chicken mac and cheese, unbelievable. Macros, 45 grams of protein, 506 calories, can't go wrong. Head over to Prep Kitchen to get yours today. So for the shifts, was it like always done in pairs? So 2 were rowing, 2 were sleeping, or how did you vary?
So that's how we started out. So two on, 2 off.
How long did you row for?
2 hours.
Okay, so 2 of you row for 2 hours and then you sleep.
Well, yeah, let's just class it as off.
Off. Okay,
for 2
so you
hours.
could be doing eating, sleeping, whatever.
Yeah, even if you're trying to sleep, you're not sleeping. You're just getting
you're just not rowing, basically.
Bounced around. Yeah. So that's how we kind of started out, and we'd stagger it so that kind of 1 hour into your shift, the person from the other cabin would change over. So every hour you were with somebody,
right?
The other person from the cabin. So you out of a 2 hour shift, you'd have an hour with one person, an hour with the other.
Someone else,
yeah. And then we ended up changing that, and we tried multiple things, but we ended up changing that to 3 up sometimes. So there'd be 3 rowing, because that extra little bit, one it fatigues the other 2 less. So it's like if you're rowing on your own, it's very fatiguing. With 2 of you, it's less fatiguing. With 3, it was even less. So you'd go a little bit faster, but the knock-on effect was the whole team was less fatigued, so you put out slightly more. But yeah, I mean, there was so much that literally drove me mad about that, and I think one of the reasons why I personally had a bad experience crossing was a lot to do with like the social. I don't know the word, but like the dynamic of it. Very different. And this is the thing, you risk. So if you'd have been 4 like really close friends, you risk coming back and not being friends. We were in I suppose, like a luckier position. Like Nick and Dean are very close friends. Dean and Matt are in the same big company, so they need to kind of remain with some sort of rapport when they get back. So you're kind of lucky in a way that I've not spoken to them that much since I got back. I've not fallen out with them, but my life's got busy. I've got my own stuff going on. But
do you think that's why they appointed you captain? To kind of say,
so yes,
at
to
extent.
At
least we won't be falling out.
Well, so
if there's going to be conflict, it might be with the captain.
There was a long process of who was going to be the captain. No one could really kind of put the finger on it, and it came down to like a deadline really of we needed to do something. And we sat in a cafe up in Hartlepool, and Nick kind of said, I don't want to do it. And I thought that was a good decision anyway, because I think Nick, especially when panicked, freezes from what I'd seen. Like he crashed the boat freezing when stuff went wrong. I'd seen it a few times, so I thought that's no disrespect to him, but that's like, everyone's got their like hole to fit in. And I was like, I don't think that's good for you. Dean and Matt, I thought would have been pretty decent, but they're very, very controlling. And again, I'd seen them both be quite bad in panic situations. Very sort of like, the voice goes up, screaming, shouting, and it's like that really doesn't solve anything. In a panic, you need to keep calm.
As a captain, it doesn't help everyone else.
Yeah. And I know for me as well, I've come from a sailing family, so I had a lot of experience on the sea.
Yeah.
So we sat down and the irony of it is I think if they'd have kept quiet for another couple of seconds, probably 30 seconds, I was about to say I'm out as well, purely because of the fact that I thought it'd be really hard to manage with those two, because they are very control freaks with it all. The only reason realistically in my head why I had it in that I would be up for being the captain is purely because of I think I make quite decent decisions and I'm very good under pressure. And they ended up kind of saying that with the dynamic it is, they couldn't really afford to be falling out and having bad feelings.
Yeah.
So they all voted me. And I was like, right, well, okay, I'm going to take it. And then they were like, right, well, the captain's job is this. And there was a whole lot listed. And I was like, well, I'll be honest, I'm not taking the captaincy unless like we can delegate this stuff out. Because like one of the big things on there was like welfare and care and stuff. And I was like, I'm sorry, but especially with my background in the military and that lot, I'm not a little care bear. Like, I genuinely probably won't ask any of you if you're all right through this. I'll just take it for granted that you're either okay or you're saying you're not.
Not telling me you're bad, you're good.
Exactly. I was like, that's the way that I work, and that's the way that I project it as well. I was like, so, but Nick is very like that. Like, every time I've come up to do the training rows, Nick's always just been very chatting, asked how I am, how's life, how's work. I was like, that's a natural gift. So I want him to do that. So we kind of delegated those bits out, and I think that worked a lot better. But yeah, for me, there was certain bits, and I filtered all this back to our coach because I want him to improve his product. But we were about 3 days into the run. We were in second place at this point. So we were doing pretty well, and we had a team pretty much on our tail. And we'd had word through the sat phones and things like that, the team that was in first, who were pretty much like the first, if you like, pro team. They'd been handpicked from somebody that had got 2 or 3 world records doing this stuff already.
Weren't they going for a world record?
Yeah. So their goal was to do this in 26 days, which is a bold statement, but I think the world record was 29 or 30 days. So they had a bit of leeway either way to kind of go for that. But we'd found out that they were rowing through the day, 3 up, and then 2 up at night. So 3 people rowing through the day, 2 at night. So I kind of came out to the team and let's try and get this straight and in chronological order. So Dean had taken over for me. I'd just been rowing. It was, say, 8 o'clock in the morning. Dean came on for his shift.
Day 3.
Yeah, I think.
Around that, day 3 or 4, yeah.
Yeah. I went and I was like, right, I'm gonna bleach our back cabin because this is, again, one of the things that people don't see. It's like you were constantly wet because you were sweating or getting spray on or when you were rowing, and then when you were in the cabin, you were in a greenhouse and you were just constantly sweating. So the cabin was moldy and disgusting, and everything stunk. Your body was like, you had, when you've been in the bath too long and you think like you were
like wrinkly.
You were like that all the time. You just did it, nothing dried at all. So I was like, I'm just bleaching everything because this is minging. So I kind of used my 2 hours off to do that. And then I came out and I was like, right, lads, what I'd like to do is I want to get a clean of the boat done. So stuff grows on your hull. So it slows you down. Not a great deal, but when
aerodynamics.
When you're already spending 30 odd days, every bit counts.
Yeah.
So we'd been kind of advised to try and clean your boat every 7 days. So this was early, but there was a really bad weather, well, not bad, but a strong weather system coming in. And I was like, no one's getting in the water then. So let's get in, clean off what's on it now, and then people will be salty. So let's get out, let's have a wash. So, with a bucket and some fresh water, that everyone will feel better for that. And then I'd like to do some like 3 up shift stuff so we can start refining what shift system works rather than do something that kills us. And they kind of just ignored me. And I was like, no, guys, this is what we need to do. Like I've just said, as the boss or as the captain, you've got to make decisions people don't want to hear. And we ended up jumping in, cleaning the boat. But one of the guys was like, no, I'm just finishing my shift. I'm having my 2 hours off. And I was like, okay. I mean, everyone's already tired 3 days in. And they say the first 7 days is like the really testing phase. And then you kind of settle into how shit it is. But you've got to give people these leeways of things like that. But I was like, it really just didn't resonate with me. I was like, but this is a team effort. It's a bit of sleep, but this is us trying to work out what's going to work well as a team. I was like, okay, go and get your head down. We don't need you to do this stuff anyway, so totally cool. So we cleaned that and then we had a wash, and I was like, right, me and Nick had cleaned the boat, so I was like, right, we'll have our wash first and then we can start rowing or whatever while you two have your wash. So we stagger it through and we're not just stagnant. And then while me and Nick were having a wash, Matt had started rowing, and then I was like, right, you and Dean have your wash now, and then we can start moving on with this stuff. And he was like, no, we're doing 2 hour stints. I've only just started, so I'm doing 2 hours. I was like, this makes no sense to me. But okay, cool. Like, I'm not going to have an argument with you, but this is just like stubbornness now. Then we finished that and we got into rowing, and then Matt actually started moaning that we'd had a wash and he hadn't. And I was just like, I can't even compute with this stuff that 40-odd-year-old blokes are really going and doing this. And I was like, okay, cool. I was like, have your wash then, like do that. So again, we pretty much had to stop rowing. I think we were down to one person rowing while that happened. But that took over an hour. So as well, this wasn't like me and Nick had literally like dipped, well, this is pretty minging actually, but dipped the kind of fluffy pads, that you get for like washing the cars, microfiber mitts, the same ones that we'd just cleaned the boat with. We were just sort of like, sod it, straight in with all the soap suds and everything and just cleaned ourselves. It's like it's soapy water. It still feels better than the grime how we felt. Matt ended up having like a full barber experience, like shaved his head, did this, did that. Like it took a full hour and I was a bit like, we're not here on a pleasure cruise. Like you've got to understand how tough this experience is going to be and you've got to kind of refine these things down. And then it was like, right, everyone's done this now. Come on, let's just practice some 3-up. We need to work out whether it just absolutely drains us. Like they're a cherry pick team. Maybe they can do that and maybe we just can't. But we're not going to know until we try it. And I just got ignored. Like not even just like, no, we don't want to. It was like a set of toddlers that were just sort of like, I'm just going to pretend that didn't get said. Just look around. I was like, and I was really challenged because I didn't have a clue how the hell you manage a team
that are willing to ignore you.
They're willing to ignore you, and there's no repercussions. Like if you're the boss, there's repercussions. In the military, there's a rank structure and there's repercussions. All my life, there was that. And we'd not put anything in place because especially me, I'd taken that for granted. So we'd done none of organising what happens.
What is going to happen is four mates, random lads, you're just on a boat rowing across a sea.
Yeah.
If someone ignores you, what are you going to do?
But this is it. Like,
feed them to a shark.
All sorts of stuff was going through my head. Like after this happened a few times, I had stuff going through my head where I was like, do I just like clock one of them? Do I just hit one of them so that there's some repercussions? Do I throw one of them in the water and then we'll come back from? It's like, it sounds absolutely crazy, but with me, I'm not worried about any of those things. If it, like that's the kind of life that I led in the military and stuff. So it's like, how do I put a repercussion on it? And I had to really like work really hard on myself to try and come up with a non-violent but solution to try and like manage a team. And in the end, it ended up being that I had, and it fucking broke me, I won't even lie, but you had to have like the level of patience where you were trying to plant seeds. So you were trying to plant the idea that you wanted, and this might take like 4 days to nurture these like little, I think maybe we should do this, I think maybe we should do that, to get it to the point where the team would kind of be aligned, and then they'd be like, yeah, let's do this.
Almost like you're having to get them to come up with the idea.
But
rather than you just telling them.
When you're awake and rowing for 13 to 16 hours and then barely sleeping as well, like days are long. So to like try and plant a seed for 4 days felt like you were doing it for like 4 months. It was so painful.
And then for it not to happen.
Yeah, sometimes. Yeah.
Did you try the 3-on-1?
Yeah, we ended up doing that quite a bit towards the end. And again, we came up with systems, but even in that, there was bits that were flawed. So initially we trialed it and again, this came from our coach, but when I relayed that to the team, it was like, right, you just volunteer hours. You can't guarantee whether you're feeling good or feeling knackered. So if you're on your 2 hours off and you actually feel good, like just give 20 minutes, half an hour, and then you still got an hour and a half off. So you've still got plenty of time to eat, drink, get a bit of sleep, whatever it is. But if you're feeling good, like use it, spend that. I gave hours to that. I think Nick did about 40 minutes, so maybe 2 20-minute spells. Matt did a few, Dean did a few, and it was like just falling on deaf ears. And I was like, I don't get this. Like, as a team, especially with, like, I wasn't just in like the normal military. So with me, I was like commando, diving was specialist, obviously PTI. I'd done a stint on selection for special forces. I was used to working in very highly motivated, very good at teamwork teams. So it really took me, like, blindsided me, this sort of mindset where it was like, I mean, one of the lads was off, so not having to row and having the 2 hours off, and was actually sat on the spare seat facing the other way, just chatting to us while we were rowing. And it's like, why haven't you got a set of oars in your hand? This isn't computing with me that there's only one way that we get there faster, and that's that we put more time into rowing. But yeah, it literally like snapped me. I found it as one of the hardest things to deal with was that team dynamic, down to, like I've said, the level of discomfort that we had in the rear cabin, and yet we never kind of changed and switched cabins and rotated through. At one point, it turned into almost bullying, where I could see Dean was rowing, and I could see him getting like really wound up. And I think Dean had initiated it by having a go at them and saying, you don't understand how bad it is in that back cabin. Like, you've got it fucking good up there. You don't fucking blah, blah, blah. But then the lads were like, oh yeah, because we've got a maid and aircon and blah, blah, blah. And just really aggravating the situation. And I could see Dean at snapping point. And I was just sort of like, what the fuck are you all doing? Like, you're grown-ass adults.
Yep.
And we're meant to be a team. And the only way we're going to get across this with any level of, like, you know, enjoyment or less suffering is if we're really there for each other. But it was stuff like that I was seeing that was just sort of like, fucking hell, lads, like.
Do you think it was partly down to, like, your fitness level and your ability to survive in that environment? Do you think they were kind of feeling under pressure of, am I going to break?
No, I think it was more team dynamic, because you saw like, I've probably painted a really bad picture of it, but it was just like the team as a whole. So you'd see great team dynamic, for instance, like in the front cabin. So Matt and Nick would like look after, it's like a little old married couple. We used to take the piss out of them for that, because they'd like come on shift and they'd be like, have you had your tea? Have you done this? Have you had some water? And he would just be like, fuck me, is that your wife? Like, sort this shit out. And me and Dean looked after each other, but then as a four,
yeah, it was
like that
missing.
actually got to the point where we needed a discussion on the boat, because we were like, we're getting to the point where there's two teams here and they're snapping each other.
Yeah.
So again, it was the whole team dynamic. So I don't mean to paint them as a bad picture. I'm obviously only giving my impression of it, but yeah, like they were good at what they were doing, but it didn't work as a four.
Yeah. Just rewind back to the start. So it was the 11th of December. I was watching on the live stream because James and Jamie flew out.
Yeah.
When I was watching the live stream, all the boats individually going out, I was actually getting goosebumps, like, because I didn't know how hard it was going to be, but the idea of rowing for 40 days just blew my mind. And the size of the boat, when I saw it, I couldn't believe it. I was expecting something big.
Yeah, but this is the thing. There was literally nowhere. And again, this is it baffles me when I speak to people and they're like, yeah, but did you sleep in a hammock? Did you do this? Did you do that? And it's like, no, like your bedroom's bigger than the whole boat. Like, you had nowhere, even to go for a shit. You had your ass with shit coming out of it a meter away from your mate's face while he's having a look at it.
You've got nowhere to hide.
Nowhere to hide. No level of comfort. No level of like just your own space. Anything like that. It's just brutal.
Can you remember the most physically demanding day out of the 39 days?
Yeah, there's two of them. It was a 2-day stint. So there was a few that were pretty challenging. The one that probably got to us the most was just after Christmas Day. And the wind had changed and it was pretty much like blowing us back in the wrong direction. And we had to row, and it was hard rowing. So it's weird. If it's not always like just if the wind's with you, it must be the currents and things like that as well. But some days rowing was quite simple. Like, it feels easier than on a rowing machine by far. Like, you're not really having to do a big deadlift and that big aggressive pull or anything like that. And then there's days where it's like, shit the bed, as someone just turned the sea into tar. It's like, what's going off here?
Damper to 20.
Yeah. And that's exactly like that, what that was for 2 days. So we rowed, breaking ourselves. Like, think of like going on for a 2-hour shift of deadlifts and then going to try and get your head down and come back on and do another 2-hour shift of deadlifts. Like, all the pressure points on your hands, on your arse, your hamstrings and things like that. And we did that for 2 days. And I think we I think we gained 6 miles in 2 days.
Is it almost worth not? What would have happened if you didn't row for those 2 days?
So what we were saying is, so I actually ended up saying to our coach, I was like, I'm in two minds now whether to put the power anchor in. So the power, obviously you're in silly deep waters. You can't put an anchor out. You use what's called a power anchor. So it's basically just a parachute. You put that out in front, obviously it catches a load of water, and then that's just going to stop you getting pushed by the wind or pushed as much. So we were stuck with between like, do we put the power anchor out? Then you've got the extra weight of a wet power anchor. You've got the admin of pulling it back in and stuff like that. And again, this was out of my control as a team captain that had no control. So the lads were like, we can't be asked putting it out because the weather might change in 2-3 hours. So what's the point in putting a power anchor out to pull it back in and do all this and the other? Ended up lasting 2 days. And yeah, that's
hindsight. It might have been
because my point to them was we could put this out if this lasts X amount. We put this out, and now what we're actually doing is we're relaxing, we're chilling, we're recovering, and then we can row harder afterwards. Which is where my kind of thought process was, because again, just from competing and doing X, Y, and Z, it's like if a CrossFit event, you're not gonna do event 1. And then go and do like at one of the vendor stalls some bike erg challenge until you go on to event 2. It's like, I'm not going to do very well in event 2.
Yeah.
So for me, it was like, it's not losing putting the power anchor in. It's just more smart thinking of actually then when the weather does change, we've actually got something to put out. Whereas what happened was we basically killed ourselves for 2 days. The weather changed and then we were all broken trying to then maximize on the weather change.
I was following that tracking, and the boats look really close on the map until you zoom in.
Yeah.
And then I was trying to work out, like, to scale how far you are away from other people, and it was crazy. Like, it looked so close.
Yeah.
Some of the 2-people boats were doing like circles, and they were way off.
Yeah.
Was that because they were stopping, and then they get drifted around?
Yeah. So. For
solos and
two and solos, it's a lot different. Even for 3s, but like it's quite different. So when the race started 1 or 2 days early, and that was pretty much because of the weather system that was coming in. So for the teams with more people on, we actually like just punched it to get south past this weather system. And for 3s, 2s, and solos, they couldn't. So they had like a really shit start where they literally just went out, got in a storm, and put the power anchor out. And that was their first like 5 to 7 days of that race. But then the difference of that was you then effectively had 2 different races going on because you had them a lot further north and us further south. But then that just kind of shows like how much this race is out of human control, because then we hit different weather systems further south. And I think the first solo boat came in probably about 5 or 6 days after the first. No, it might be a slightly longer than that, but after the first team of 4, and that's because, and they shouldn't. Do you know what I mean? But it's because we'd been battered so much by these weather systems in the south that they now hadn't, and they started picking up these trade winds pushing them west, and we had none of the trade winds and just like storm after storm.
Were there any teams of 4 that were still north that benefited? Or did every team go south?
Every team, yeah. It's very kind of stamp, and you got to think as well. A lot of this is there's like, have we got the strategy right? What are they doing? Why are we doing this? Shit, maybe we should be doing that. So I think even whether you like it or not,
there's always the unknown, isn't there?
Yeah.
What if we did that?
Yeah.
What if they're doing something different?
I think some of the teams, some of like the Navy girls, I think maybe even the Army girls kind of went more north. But even after that, they immediately shot south to try and obviously like, if they're south, we'll go south, kind of catch up with us. So yeah, I think a lot of the teams of that build keep relatively same routes.
This podcast episode is sponsored by WOD Powders. WOD Powders are a functional fitness nutrition brand. Their focus and productivity powder is a nootropic blend. It's called Optimal State, available in 2 flavors. It's designed to improve focus, improve concentration. It has research-backed ingredients, and it's a caffeine-free formula. Head over to wodpowders.co.uk to get yours today. If you do want to quit, how do you?
Well, you don't. I mean, I think a couple of boats got rescued by that. There is one safety yacht sailing about.
Yeah.
But for instance, like we asked, so when we got hit by the marlin and we were repairing that, Nick slightly screwed up repairing that, and we ended up with us having no epoxy putty left for any more repairs. So if we got hit again, we're like, right, we've got nothing to repair it now. So we got on the sat phone and we're like, look, can the safety boat bring us some more epoxy resin just in case? And they were like, well, yeah, they can, but it's 10 days away. So
okay, so let's say that something fatal happened.
You could potentially just be there with a dead body for
10 days.
10 days.
Wow.
Yeah. But I don't know, like we'd had discussions like that before we set off. And I've got to admit, I did kind of say to them, I was like, I'm sorry, but if you die, you've got to understand that like everybody's given up a big commitment to this. We need to, well, I'll be honest, I just said, I'm just going to throw your body overboard and crack on. Well, you don't need to go back.
Yeah.
We don't need to like lose all this hard work just for.
We don't need to buy that £250.
Yeah, I'll give you £250 rope and tie it around your ankles. And
how often did team members like check in with family, friends? Was it a daily thing? Was it easy to do?
So, again, this is one of the things. This kind of, I'm getting sidetracked left, right, and centre, but this relates back to when you were saying, you know, were we a competitive team or were we just kind of getting across? They'd said that they wanted to be competitive, and I was like, right, if that's what you want, that's what we'll do. That's one of the bits that really hit me. So I probably rang my mum and dad 6 times the whole crossing, 7 times maybe. Dean rang his wife about 8 times a day. Nick rang his family multiple times a day. Matt rang probably about twice a day. So I think he rang around about 7 for the school run to speak to his kids, and then he'd ring afterwards to speak to his wife. And you can kind of understand these things. And I think for me, like especially with Afghan, Nick and Dean were ex-military, but again, I think just not quite the same as me. Don't know whether what tours they'd been on and at what time in their lives and things like that. But I'm used to not keeping comms with people if you're doing this type of thing. They weren't or didn't seem to. And again, like one of the bits that kind of, I suppose, kind of found hard to manage as a captain was Christmas Day. We'd said Christmas Day we're doing like 3 up all through the day. It's like we've just got to push really hard on it. Weather's decent. We've got to go for it. I know it's Christmas Day. We've got to. Christmas Day came and they just did 2 on, 2 off. And every time they were off, they were all just ringing family, kind of in tears, upset and all this lot. And I'm not going to knock them. And I didn't say anything to them that day because I was like, you clearly need this. Like there's times where you've got to just shut the fuck up as a captain and understand that they need this. And it's like you going and prodding the bear right now isn't productive.
Yeah. And maybe kids involved is slightly different.
Slightly different, but again, my kind of counter argument to this was like,
you signed up for
this. You knew exactly when it was going to be, and I know it's tough, but we're going to do this. But the bit that kind of really got to me after that was the level of, let's say, whinging that went on about the fact that DBC, who we were pushing neck and neck with, had overtaken us by 12 miles that day. And then they're all like heads in the you know, like down, moods down. They're all and all this that and the other. And I ended up having to sit them down and I just said, like, lads, you really need a bit of a reality check here. Like you said, you wanted to be a competitive team, and I get that, but what you've just done that day is not what's required on this race as a competitive team. And now you're whinging about the fact that 4 younger lads that are acting like a competitive team have overtaken you. I said, there's nothing wrong with it, but you need to get out of this mindset of fucking beating each other up, saying that you're competitive. And I mean, it was down to the level where like Dean wouldn't let Nick have a shit on shift because he wanted to hit his 6 mile quarter. And you're like, But what does that matter? 'Cause he's got to have a shit at some point. Like, it's just, you're just beating each other up on this fake pretense of being a competitive team. But then you're not doing certain checkers in my head of what a competitive should be, looking after each other, making sure, basically, doing whatever you can as a team, welfare, more people rowing, etc., to get from point A to point B as fast as possible. Yeah. That's it, in my eyes, that a competitive team should be doing.
How did you fuel for this? Because so 4 fully grown men for 39 days, that's a lot of food, typically.
So I was on 5,100 calories a day. Dean was on, Jesus, like 6
of what,
and
though?
a bit.
Like, what food did you take?
So what you take is, you have to take, I think it's like 44 days in total of rations. And then...
What is that? What food?
Yeah, so the breakdown of it is, each day you have... I think it's so for me, it was like 5,100 a day. So out of that, I'd have about 3,500 calories of dehydrated meals. So we would make our own water on the boat, and then you'd rehydrate the meals and eat them. And then the other calories would be made up from what was called a snack pack. So like for me, every day I had a Mars bar, a Snicker, like beef jerky, bits like that you'd put in, usually like quite high calorie that would boost your calories back up. But the dehydrated rations were like, they knocked me. Most of the military rations aren't dehydrated. We'd had some of the dehydrated ones for taste testing before we bought them all. What I ended up finding on the boat was it was hard to rehydrate them properly. And if they're not rehydrated, it gives you like acid reflux, which I've never had in my life. But I was getting that from literally everything I was eating. So you were eating stuff, and then you just had this like feeling of gas in the back of the throat and feeling sick, and then you were like, sweet, I've got 2 hours of rowing, and then I'm gonna have that feeling while I'm trying to sleep, and then this is mint.
Do you know what you should have done? You should have got 2,000 miles away, ordered a Deliveroo, and just seen what they did.
See what happens. Yeah.
Looked at your location.
Get one of them little jet ski turns up with his little rucksack on
and his pizza in the back.
But the lads actually, so Dean and Nick, me and Matt didn't do it because we thought that it'd probably end up leading to a tummy bug or something. But Dean and Nick actually bought a load of pizzas at Gomera, and like bagged them up and took them out. So for about the first 3 days or so, they ate like cold pizza.
Criminal that wasn't McDonald's.
Yeah, no.
Should have had.
Well, I think they were on about doing some sort of like
dehydrated Big Mac.
Well, like a marketing thing where when we got to the other end, they'd get off the boat with like I think it was going to be with Deliveroo as well, because obviously they're like business partners and stuff in it. It's like the world's longest Deliveroo delivery and things like that. And then, I don't think that went anywhere. And to be honest, by the time we were getting off that boat, I don't think that would have happened. I think it was just like, just get me the fuck off this.
If I like leave my phone at home, go to work, I find myself lost without it, which is very sad. What was it like being without social media, without Instagram, TikTok nonsense?
So I'm probably a lot like you, because I do a lot of my business on my phone, which means that I end up losing a lot of hours on social media as well. Genuinely, I don't know, I wouldn't say I missed it that much. In fact, I didn't miss it, and you kind of get used to not having it. But it's kind of hits home just how easy it is to fall back into it when you get back. It's like instant. In fact, I think I'm worse than ever. Like, I'm really struggling with being productive at the moment. But yeah, when you're in the boat, I think it'd be a lot tougher to have your phone and not use it. You know, like be living here and
just not go on
wean yourself off it. I think it was a lot harder than you just can't. It's not even a question. You can't. Because I mean, my phone broke on the second day because of all the moisture. It wouldn't turn on. It said it was like moisture damaged. I was like, it's not even been in the water. It's just been in this cabin. But that's how humid that cabin was. So I literally it was just, well, that is what it is.
So being so isolated, did you reflect on anything else whilst, like when you're rowing, what are you actually thinking about?
So that's a tough one, because I'd had a particularly rough year. And to be honest, if I'd not been asked 2 years before, if I'd have been asked like a year before, with the way my life was, I wouldn't have done that row. But you've committed to it, so you got to see it through. I'd left my long-term girlfriend, and I left her for somebody else who ended up being like quite a manipulative relationship, which I didn't say. And especially like, I still suffer coming to terms with that as quite a macho bloke, having to admit the fact that you were effectively like abused and manipulated in that way. And like, I'd found her cheating on me and things like that. So you'd gone through that. All that year as well, my dad had been battling with cancer. I just had to put my dog to sleep before we went. And with splitting up with Kat as well, I was in a financial position where I couldn't afford to live in the house that I live in because it needed 2 incomes. And you try to renovate it. So somehow, without even being able to afford to live there, you have to find the money to actually do it as well. Yeah. So you've got a lot of money stressors. You kind of heartbroken, but mental kind of scarring from that as well that you're dealing with. Going through grief with my dog, which I know sounds soft as fuck, but like, for anyone out there that's got dogs, will kind of get it how much. And this was, like, we went everywhere together. And then the Monday before we flew out, so we flew out on a Saturday. On the Monday before we flew out, my dad had a fit and stopped breathing, and we had to rush him to hospital. And they like got him stable and everything. And then I think it was about maybe the Wednesday or so before we flew, they'd done all the scans and everything, and they'd said that they found another tumour in his brain. So you've got all this going on, and then it's like, right, Saturday, now we're flying out. So it's hard because it's like, it's not like you're in this peaceful Zen place and you're like, oh, it's just me and the ocean, and I'm finding myself and whatever. Like some people probably will have had that type of experience.
Your head's more full than ever.
Yeah. And it's like, well, it's tough shit. You're here, deal with it, and just fucking get it done.
Did those topics keep coming back in? Like, keep circling round
when
you were rowing? Was it a repetitive thing?
Yeah.
And did the longer the row went on, did you get more clarity on things?
I wouldn't say more clarity. It's hard. You kind of go over the same stuff. It's a lot like Groundhog Day. It's not like, because I think as well, communication's key with this. Like, I actually worked with a counsellor all of last year because I thought I was going through depression, and this is while I was still with that girl. I couldn't work out why I found myself being very emotional about stuff, which I'm not. Like, some of the stuff that I've seen and the stuff, I'm a bloke's bloke, and I found myself being really kind of like emotional about stuff, not being able to control myself, like tearing up about stuff. So I thought I was going through some sort of depression, and I started seeing the counsellor. And then that, like, after the relationship broke up and we put stuff in place, that's when it became quite clear that it was, like a manipulative relationship, and that was what was screwing my head up so much. But it did really like hit home to me how important it is to be able to have conversations with people, be able to break stuff down, be able to then go away and think about it and come back. Like, it's especially with blokes, it's not talked about. Like, we don't talk.
No.
So being cooped up with the same 4 people, like, some shifts you wouldn't even speak to them. You'd spend 2 hours without speaking to anyone, and then you'd be back in the cabin speaking to no one. You'd come back out. Like, it wasn't productive for that type of have a chat, put stuff to bed, come back and do it. So you just literally had to like regurgitate it, go through it. So yeah, it was shit.
How did you feel about all that at the end of the row compared to at the start? Like, did you manage to process things, or were you just thinking about a lot of that in a negative way?
You didn't really get to process things. I'd say things had managed to get put to bed a little bit more. So I was probably thinking about the ex a little bit less. you weren't worried about the money stuff because you were like, well, I ain't seen any banking or anything. I've got nothing to fucking worry about that until I get back to the UK. So that kind of subsided a bit. But even that, like with my dad, it was we'd got to Antigua, and my brother had flown out to meet us there, along with all the other families and stuff. And I think I'd been in Antigua 2 days, and my brother was like, "I need a beer with you," and that's.
You're good.
That's when he told me that my dad was terminal. So yeah, I wouldn't say it's like the best headspace to come off that, get told that. And then that was rough. We stayed out there for 4 days and then came back back to the UK. And then I was like walked in to my mum and dad's house and just couldn't really recognise your dad. He'd deteriorated a lot. So they had him on like steroids for the tumour in his brain, which had weirdly like swollen his head out here. So
not only is he's physically unrecognisable.
Physically, yeah. It's like he had changed a lot. And it kind of worries me that I might have visually, sort of with my facial expressions, he might have seen that. But yeah, he was just wasting away. He was struggling to get in and out of bed, out of the chair. You could see the strain that it was having on my mum, trying to like care for him as well. So me and my brother planned to basically move in. So we were gonna just do like maybe 3 days each or something. So because we've got businesses, we're both renovating houses. We've got shit going on in life as well. So we're like, the best way we can help mum is like, I'll do this side of the week, you do that side type of thing. But that, I mean, even when I got back, there was 2 times when he got rushed to hospital again by ambulance, because now what happened was the steroids were basically making him diabetic. So his blood sugars people's blood sugar should normally be about 3 or 4, I think.
Yeah.
His was at like 30.
Wow.
It was like ridiculous. But it was getting to that was affecting him like loads. So yeah, they ended up taking him into hospital. And then the last time he never even came home, he went to the hospice, Overgate Hospice.
Yep.
And he was there for just over a week and then passed away.
So sorry to hear that. What was did you speak to him about any of the row?
Little bits.
Because I know he was keen for you to do it, wasn't he?
Yeah. I did speak to them about that. And yeah, I don't know. No, not really. Because again, when I came back, because of where the tumour was, it affects his ability to communicate. So you couldn't really have a conversation.
You're still limited with what?
Massively. He was like trapped in his own body. So a lot of the time, he'd be trying to say something and just random words would come out. And you could see how frustrated he was with that. And then by the time he kind of went to the hospice, you couldn't really get more than a few words out of him. And that was more just really checking if he was okay or if he needed anything.
I thought I was going to be speaking to you about the hard part being the row, but I imagine this puts everything into perspective as to, was the row
I think
the difficult part?
A lot of people ask me about the row and stuff like that, and it's like, don't know. It was disgusting. It was definitely difficult. But for me, it's just like one little bit of my life. I'm like, whatever, I'll forget about that. You know, I mean, I've gone through tough stuff before in the past. But yeah, I think but this is like, this affects you a lot.
Anyone looking at doing something like the row in terms of anything over 20 days, endurance wise, what would you advise them to do?
Don't do it. I don't know. What do you mean? Like physically training wise?
Yes, I suppose. How do you prepare for it? Like, so, you've got quite good mental resilience. So from observing the other 3 teammates, like,
I think so from a physical training point of view, I got the team basically just doing strength and conditioning. I was like, there's not much point just going out and doing hours and hours of rowing. So because what you're going to do is you're going to streamline yourself too much. You're going to become like the Formula 1 car of rowing, which is not built for a massive rally. Do you know what I mean? It was like you want to have resilience. So the stronger you can be, then you're, especially like starting from 2 years out, I was like, you've got time there to strengthen joints and tendons and actually make yourself resilient to all these knocks, bangs and everything else. I was like, that makes more sense. So from a physical point of view, it's that. But I don't think the row is physically demanding, apart from the only times when it really gets physically demanding is when you get pinned. So what happens is, like I said, normally you've got the wind behind you, especially in like strong weather. If you're not rowing hard, the wind will tend to push you side onto the wind because now it's got a bigger surface area, so it kind of naturally wants to have you there. The only other time it really happens is sometimes when you're surfing down some of the big waves, as you get to the top of the wave wants to turn you as well. So if you're not fighting that, that'll try and turn you. And then you side on. So now all the waves and everything is just coming side on, knocking you over, back again. And to get out of that, you have to literally put everything in for however long it takes. So what you have to do is you kind of turn the boat a little bit sort of into the wind, and then you just go hard the other way to try and get it and try and get that momentum to get it back round. So you kind of just rowing all on one arm, and then what you can do as well is you turn the other way. So you're doing like a max low row with one arm and max bench with the other, while trying to not get them stuck in the water and do all this. It's absolutely insanely hard. But yeah, that physically, that's probably the only bit. Even when the water was thick, it's like it's a moderate deadlift repeated. It's more the mindset.
So you don't
stuff.
feel like you were physically challenged that much? Okay.
No. I wasted away. I lost 9 kilos of muscle.
Wow.
I got in the best shape I have been in the last 10 years to go on the row. And I came back looking like fucking Mr. Burns. Yeah.
Now you've done it, I feel like you may think that's it, I'm done, but I feel like you're the sort of person that will go, what's next?
Yeah. No, I'm a dickhead. So I've got some lined up.
You did the row, obviously, prior to losing your dad.
Yeah.
Now you obviously raised £225,000 for the McDonald's charity. I feel like this tees up for something.
So
next.
There's a couple of things. I mean, this year I'm doing a sponsored bike ride towards the end of the year. I think we're doing most of Italy, and that's for close friends of mine that they lost their child just before he turned 3 to cancer. So they've set up a charity for that. So I'm a big supporter of that. So I want to help that. So I think we're doing that. I think because I'm doing the cycling, I fancy just ticking off the box of doing an Ironman. But then I've also found out about a 4,000 mile bike ride from Italy to Finland.
Wow.
So I'm thinking if I'm doing a bit of biking, I might as well see whether I do that.
Might as well just casually do that.
Yeah, and it's solo, so I don't need to.
Yeah, well, yeah, you've not got that issue.
Yeah,
There's no management.
Gets rid of that. So if there's a problem with not listening to the team captain on that one, it's that will get violent to myself.
When you told your dad about these challenges, was he really up for you doing it?
I didn't. It's weird. I didn't speak to him about this stuff.
The row, though.
The row. Yeah. So this is kind of like how we are as a family. So even how far off it's within like the last 5 years or so, I think. But my dad signed up for the ASAB. So it's like Azores back to the UK race, and he won his category. So he's done, I mean, it's in my blood. Like the family does stuff like this. Like, in fact, I think he actually beat the guy that was like put the pro team together on our race.
Right.
So I think he was on the same because he did sailing as well. I think my dad actually beat him.
Have you done that race?
No, but I have sailed back from the Azores. Yeah, I've sailed back, but just not in a race.
I think that's got to be done. Yeah,
possibly, but I think I need to. There's definitely some.
If your dad set a time, it's there to be beaten.
No, I can't beat my dad's time.
No,
not a chance. It'd definitely be, I think, a bit easier than rowing it.
Yeah,
but yeah, and then there's another challenge that I've heard about as well, which is like kayaking the Yukon, so in Canada, and that's meant to be like the longest, most extreme kayak as well. Wow. So yeah, I might see them. I think the main thing for me is just this isn't really about me. Doing this wasn't about me. Everyone asked me like, "Are you proud of the achievement? Are you proud of this? Proud of that?" The only thing that I'm proud of is the money that we raised. So I couldn't give a shit about rowing the Atlantic. It's never been on my tick box. I don't give a shit about riding 4,000 miles. It sounds like it's going to be horrific and hurt my ass. I don't give a shit about kayaking the Yukon. But if I can do it in a way that raises decent chunks of money like that, then I don't care what it does to me. So that I'd be up for.
This podcast episode is sponsored by WOD Powders. WOD Powders have just released their protein coffee, combining grass-fed bovine collagen with True Star instant coffee, rich, smooth Colombian coffee. Head over to wodpowders.co.uk to get yours today. So yeah, for anyone doing Rep It Out or Battle for Middle Ground, will we be seeing, so especially the teams comps, will we be seeing some team rowing events? Like off the back of this, it'd be quite, I don't know, I was just thinking like heavy bench press into a synchro 4-man row.
I'll be honest, I think more of it comes down to the actual like logistics of it, and whether it works. So who is it? Is it Proving Grounds, the Scottish one, that have got the rowers lined up in that system? And I still don't like know whether that concept really works. I need to go up and actually see it myself. But from speaking to people and seeing it on visuals and stuff, because this is like, unfortunately, the nature of what we do with events is there's a lot of factors to it. It's not just what I think is a cool event. There's a lot of factors to what's good programming, whether there's a good mix of everything, and also what's it looking like from an entertainment point of view. Like people are here, see a whole thing in it. It's like the gladiators went there because, to the Colosseum, because it was entertainment.
Yeah.
People they wanted to compete, but you're there to provide entertainment. So it's whether it can be done in a way that is like foolproof and is good visuals and is good entertainment. I don't know. I think
events need to end for time and there be a clear winner. I think a lot of these AMRAPs and a lot of these, like for the spectator point of view, I want to see who won. Yeah. And how much better they were than that person.
But again, that's really tough as a business, unless you've got a huge sponsor. You can't have a lot of athletes on that type of thing. Yep. That's why we'll put a final in and stuff like that.
The finals work well, yeah.
Yeah, apart from, I always remember your podcast with Connie.
Connie.
Yeah.
She'll never let you forget that, I don't
Yeah,
think.
you wouldn't either. You were giving me some right. You were like, you should have done it this way, you should have done it that way.
It's easy to say when you're not the one making the mistake.
Exactly, yeah.
But yeah, no.
Well, it's not even just that. It's like you've got to come up with it's easy to have time to think about something and contemplate it. Try heat of the moment.
In the moment.
When you're straight away being told this is what's happened and you're like, how, why, whatever, right, I need to just shit can how and why it's happened. How do we find a solution for this? And you're firing umpteen solutions. You're like, do we just get just them two to redo it? And you're like, well, one of them is more fatigued than the other. So my head's saying straight away, if the more fatigued one ends up losing, they're going to say it's because they're more fatigued. It's like, it worked perfectly if the more fatigued one wins.
Because then it's a clear winner.
Exactly. But if it goes the other way, so there's like, there's no way you can really.
No, I didn't mean to throw shade on you there.
No.
And also, look, I always sing your praises. I always say you're the best events organizer in the UK when it comes to CrossFit comps. Like, fact. I've always said that. So
good recovery.
I've recovered. No, I normally end the podcast on some stupid little news things and daft questions, but I feel like the ending of or the topics we've covered, like I kind of want to end it on that note.
Okay.
Is that all right?
Yeah.
Like I just feel it's really raw and really emotional, and I feel like it's a nice way to end it.
Yeah, cool.
Anything else you want to say, or
what new products are you bringing in?
Don't be silly. We don't need to plug them. I've got you some Optimal State, which is actually when I heard that you had potentially have ADHD. Everyone spends so much time on TikTok, Instagram. Like people are just nowadays getting so used to short form, quick content that we're being like programmed to retain attention for 3 seconds and then scroll. This is purely for focus, concentration, productivity, alertness. So it's a non-stim, nootropic.
We'll try it because stims don't work for me anyway. But yeah, it's something that I'll be honest. That's one of like I don't know whether it's related to the row or to like the way that the last 18 months has hit me as well. But that I'm struggling with a lot at the moment is like productivity. It's like massive overwhelm of being completely out of your business for God knows how many months, and then you've got the backlog of that, and you come back and you've got to look after.
Where do you start with everything?
Look after your father now. Look after the funeral stuff. Looking after your mum, looking after the stuff that she needs to now sell. She needs to sell a house, so we need to get her house done. So now I'm project managing my house plus hers, plus 3 businesses, plus everything else. It's like...
Yeah, being pulled at by so many angles, you just think,
but then you end up just doing nothing and, like you say, getting lost on social media and things like that.
Yeah. So, yeah.
So we'll see whether it works.
See how it works, yeah. Perfect client to test it right now. Where will we find you on social media? So you got your page.
Yeah, we've got
Jamie,
loads.
just put them all on the screen.
Yeah.
You've got Rep It Out, Battle for Middle Ground, Castle Games, Arnold Fitness Games potentially, Graft Events, Graft Gym,
Graft Hybrid. Yeah.
And Hornsey.
Yeah, so. Don't bother following me. It's just shit content.
I think it's the best content. Just ruthless.
Yeah, but again, I covered that on, where we were talking before, but I've had to change the way that I am with that. Like when the dynamic changes to you've got a team and you've got things like this, and especially just the way that with the way that the world is these days, it's like you're never going to please everyone, but at least before people just kind of like, yeah, well, he's got his opinion or this, that, and the other. These days, it's literally like business suicide to almost have an opinion. Do you know what I mean? So, and especially some of the stuff that I used to come out with.
Please do it. Just do stories and just do close friends.
Yeah.
And just add me in.
Well, we did. To be honest, like I set up a TikTok ages ago called Rick's Rants, and I've never really used it, but maybe that should come out, should be a thing. But I feel like Hillafit's kind of taken that. So then you become like just a Hillafit wannabe. Yeah. But yeah, it's not really about that.
We'll put all the socials on. People can follow whatever they want. And big year of events.
Yeah, hopefully. And we've hopefully this year started to get some international ones as well. So that'll be a nice little bonus.
Very good.
Yeah.
Thanks for joining me. Really good episode.
Pleasure, mate.
Cheers. I hope you enjoyed that episode, and a huge thank you for listening. Make sure you're following the pod on Instagram. The podcast is sponsored by WOD Powders. That's at WOD Powders on Instagram. Please show some support to the pod by either sharing this episode with a mate or buying some supplements from wodpowders.co.uk. See you guys next week.